hopefully I'll explain a bit about what Combine is, a bit about what HealthKit is, and you'll go away thinking, wow, I know a bit of Combine and I know a bit of HealthKit. So the first thing we'll do is just give ourselves an easy way to get all of the workouts from HealthKit, which basically involves making a static function on a sample query. So HealthKit has these things called queries, which it runs against the health store. And there's a few different variants. To get the workouts, we use a sample query. And we say, okay, well, give me all of the workouts, and from the distant past, we will get them, and we've seen all about that until now, which is the end date. We'll create a predicate for that and sort whatever, and just return a fully formed sample query. And you'll note that we pass in the completion block, which returns the array of samples for an error, and it's an old school, like horrible Objective-C1, so it's got question marks everywhere. There's no result type, and it's horrible. But that gets passed to the initializer of the query. There's a similar one for fetching heart rates data. So we pass in the workout and a completion block, which again has these horrible question marks and everything. And we do some stuff there to actually, no one cares about that, right? I've worked out that what I want to do is create this workout item and put those as in an array and just display those in the list. So it's going to have the start and the end date. Don't necessarily need the start, the end date, but we'll put it in there anyway. And we'll have the average heart rate in there as well. And firstly, I'm going to look at the traditional way that we currently do that in HealthKit without Combine. And we'll walk through this piece of code here. That seemed dramatic, but I realize I'm already losing my voice. So at the top of this, we're going to ask to request authorization for the sample types that we need. So there's a set of sample types, and whenever you're presented from a health-based app, the user will get a sheet to allow this app to access all of this data or not. If they allow you, then we'll go through this guide. Otherwise, we'll complete with failure. And we've got a result type which has our array of workout items. So we're kind of doing some error handling here. Then we'll fetch all the workouts, and we're doing some error handling here. We're not doing error handling here because that's too hard. This shouldn't happen, he said famously. Then we'll get the associated heart rate data, and this is where things start to get a little bit tricky. So we've got to go and fetch all of these asynchronous, do all of these asynchronous calls to health store to get each heart rate data for each workout. So we're going to loop through all the workouts. And then into this dispatch, which won't finish until they've all been left. So essentially, all of these need to happen before the dispatch goes through. And that's how we'll make sure that actually we've got all of these threads back, and we've got our array of workouts all made, because we're basically creating them here. There's some error handling here, except they're not handled, because that's really hard. And then afterwards, we've got to execute the query. So if anyone's used your session with data task, you'll often think, wow, mustn't forget to do that, and then instantly forget to do it and wonder when the network requests happen. Well, that's the same here. And you'll notice that at the bottom of this whole thing that we've just gone through, like the last 2 pages, the bottom of it will actually execute the one to fetch the workouts, which happened like ages ago. So yeah, that's all fun. So that comes out to looking like this. Right? Combine help. You really hope so, right? Because Apple have already said, like, this is what Combine's for. It's doing asynchronous stuff and going, yes, I want all of this stuff, and out. So hopefully Combine is going to help us. It's a bit odd. I'll expect that slide next. So what we're going to do is create a publisher to get our samples from HealthKit, and then we're going to create another publisher to get our average heart rate data. So both of those are 2 different queries, they're 2 different query types, and we're going to make publishers for both so that we can just kind of do all of the Combine magic right at the end. And I'll show you that code right here. So the first thing to do is define your sample publisher. And I realize this makes it sound like it's just like a demo publisher, but it's not, it's for actually collecting samples. And for a publisher, we need an output and and we just define these here. A lot of times Swift can infer this, but for your own sanity, it's going to be a lot better if you define these at the top, so you know what the output and the failure type is for any given publisher. And we're going to say, okay, the output we want is our array of HK samples, and failure we want as the error. We're going to take the health store because every publisher is this kind of ball of magic that you're going to pass around, and it's not going to, once you connect something to it, it's going to start firing off all of the requests. So it needs all of the information it needs to make those requests, including the health score and all of the bits of data that we would have given it, as we saw previously. And then in an extension, we can conform it to the publisher protocol and combine, and that only needs one method. And contrary to some popular belief that you may have heard or may not, publishers don't actually give values to subscribers. Publishers give subscriptions to subscribers, and subscriptions give values to subscribers. Or moreover, subscribers ask subscriptions for values, which is a bit confusing, but it is quite useful here because it just means that we can make a subscription type and give it to the subscriber, and that's all this method needs to do. And in fact, most of the time, that's all of this method needs to do for almost any publisher I've found so far. A couple of other interesting things. This subscriber here is completely generic, so it needs to be, you need to make sure that it conforms to the combined subscriber protocol. You need to make sure that the failure that the subscriber expects is the same failure type that you're outputting. So in this case, it's an error. In other instances, it could be never, it could be anything you want. It has to be an error type, but you could also define what kind of errors your publisher is pushing out. And you need to make sure that the input of the subscriber matches the output of the publisher. So the publisher is going to be outputting values, and the subscriber is going to go, yes, I want that value, or I want that value. If they're not the same value, then, I mean, this isn't going to compile, but it wouldn't work anyway because, like, it would get a value that it just didn't know what to do with. Then later on, which is now, we're going to define the subscription. We're going to redefine these clauses here because we have to. We can still access the failure in the output because we've defined the subscription as a nested type of the sample publisher. That's a really handy pattern. Just combine or not. If you want any data about your generic information or your type definitions in some place, and want it in another place that's kind of related, nesting it will give you all of those values. We'll create the initializer, the one we just used. We save off the store, and here you'll notice that at no point do we actually give in the completion block. So a sample query needs a completion block at the end of it. We've got all of the other bits, the type, the predicate, the limit, and the sort descriptors. But the subscription actually provides the completion block. Okay? This is crucial to understand the rest of the talk. So I want to put it out again. The subscription defines the completion block. Okay? So although everything else is passed in, the completion block here basically does the here's your values subscriber. So the subscriber, we unwrap to make sure that there are samples because this is an old crappy question mark Objective-C callback. We unwrap it to make sure there are samples, and if there are, we'll say, hey subscriber, receive these samples, and we're good. And at the end, sometimes this is great, and it's great here. In some of the HealthKit, it's not going to work, but you can just make sure that it's finished, so that the subscriber knows, okay, this thing's ended. Otherwise, tell the subscriber to receive a completion failure with the error. And people tell me that if there's a samples, there's not an error, and if there's not samples, there's definitely an error. So even though they're both question marks, you can do that and sort of force them up there to make our lives a little bit easier. So the last thing, what we haven't done, is conform the subscription type that we've made here to the combined subscription protocol. So the subscription protocol has all these other bits of definitions. As I just said.
Excuse me, can you go back this?
Yes.
Can the subscriber or receive is kind of like a data receipt?
This bit here?
Yes, so the next one.
This one here?
Yes. Is the data received from the servers?
So there's no servers involved. So we're just asking the health store, which is on the phone, for all of that data. In some other publishers, in a data task publisher, there will be servers involved. But this is saying that, hey, receive this value, and then finish. So don't expect any more values from me, because I'm done. So yeah, that's the data, but you actually get a finished bit at the end of the process to say I'm finished.
The equivalent thing in an Excel to next looks complete.
What's right?
If the equivalent in an Excel when you invoke on next and you send some event and it will be complete.
I don't know what it's like, so yeah. I've heard they're very similar.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So the subscription wants two methods, this request and a cancel. So you've got a publisher and you've got a subscriber such as a sync or an assign. And as soon as that gets hooked up, the publisher chain says, okay, here's a subscriber, and that goes all the way up the chain. And then each publisher says, okay, here's a subscription, here's a subscription, here's a subscription, until the subscriber has a subscription. And then the subscriber says, okay, I want value. So request with this demand. Now this demand is like, I think there's many or some or one. It can demand however many values it wants. On top of that, it could cancel. So that point at which you've got a subscriber, you'll probably put it into something called an any cancelable, which you can cancel. And if that happens, it sends this cancel message up the chain. So on hooking this up, when the demand is requested for a value, we execute the query. So we've got the health store and we've made the health query now. We'll just execute it. And once that finishes, our completion block gets called from the previous slide, telling the subscriber here's some values, and then the completion. So that's kind of the end of it. Unless this happens before that process finishes, in which case the cancel is called and we'll tell the store to actually stop fetching that query. And then at the end of it, to make things a little bit nicer, it's often easier to get publishers from an object rather than just making a publisher and passing in the health store. So we'll make an extension on health store to get a sample publisher and pass it all the properties that it needs and return the sample publisher just by initializing it. It's just a nice way of wrapping that all up. Has anyone got any questions about that flow? Don't want to lose anyone, hopefully. So some people might be sitting there and go, oh my god, no, but you just wrote this thing, but we can't use that custom initializer we had that just gave us the workouts query. What are we to do? Which is this one here that we said about earlier. We're not using this at all, and this is kind of convenient and really nice to use, right? We don't want to throw away all this work. I mean, it's beautiful. If anyone knows me, especially recently, you'll know that I like to try and push the boundaries and think, well, there must be a solution to this, right? And often there is a solution, and I tend to make a new version of the thing that I just made until something actually works nicely. And like any good person who does version control, I will version control my structs. So we'll make sample publisher 2. And again, we'll define the output and the failure types exactly the same way we did, except this time we'll define the type it is for the completion block. So this completion block here is the completion block that the sample query wants. It's interesting to note that the sample query is in the back. It's because in a weird, janky way, you're initializing your sample query, and if you need to use the sample query within the block, the completion block, you can't because it hasn't been initialized yet because the block is in the initializer. So they give it to you nicely in the completion block, as well as the value and the error. And we'll say, instead of passing us all of the values that we need to make the sample query, we'll take a function which when you give the completion to it, will give us a sample query. If anyone's done functional programming, this is called a higher order function, which will make you sound smart. Hopefully that just made me sound smart, because that's why he used it. It's insane to get your head around. It still blows my mind. We're going to pass it one of these things, which gives us this completion block, into this function to get a sample query. And we'll use that in a bit, and we'll explore why that's really, really interesting. So again, we have the receive subscriber when we conform to publisher. It's a little bit simpler now, because we can just one line it. And we pass that query all the way through to the subscription. We write a subscription class, which will do the same kind of thing, except here, we're now saying we want the query, but we're going to get that query from this function here. And we need to pass it the completion block. Well, that's great, right? Because I said that the subscription is the thing that does the completion. So it's going to define this completion block here, but use the query function to get the actual query. Naming's hard, sorry, that could have been better. But that's really cool, like it's doing the same stuff, but now it can, something else can deal with the details of actually providing that query. This part's exactly the same because we've still got a store and we've still got a query. And now our extension looks like this with, frankly, a load of garbage in the middle of it. This is our function for the query. It's our completion block, which gives us a sample query. And we can just make the initializer for the sample publisher too. And again, this is just a nice way of wrapping that all up. So what does this look like? We wanted something that would work with our existing workouts function that meant that we didn't have to actually deal with all of the little parameters for the sample query. It means that you can initialize a health store and then ask the store for a publisher, giving a function which, so now I've got to think about it, right? You give it a function which when you get the completion, which is the $0, gives you the sample query. And this is our defined workouts sample query that we did at the start. And that's all we need to define this workouts publisher. We've used that existing function that gave us the sample query when given a completion block, and we've made a publisher from it because of this magic function, basically. If anyone's a bit weirded out by all of these curly brackets, we can go one step further and just get rid of those too. So this is exactly the same. Because workouts is a function of the sample query that takes a completion block, that's exactly what the store publisher for function wants. So we can just pass that function straight through. And I've heard the functional people say that's point free programming. So that's your second thing that you can say when you want to sound clever. Hello.
Sorry. So this one is based on the skill and based on the opportunities that this one combined gives. It actually looks like RxCP.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the benefits between this combined versus RxCP, or is it just a replacement for an Apple framework? It's just an answer for RxCP.
I think the easy
Or
answer is that you're not.
What's the difference between the observable pattern, or what's
So
the benefits between that versus observable pattern, like KBO
Yeah.
versus this one?
They're pretty much the same, right? From everything I've heard. Yeah. But the thing you get with combine is the fact that you will be using combine. There's already functions out there that Apple have that only work with combine and don't work with a traditional fetching way. So I think some of the new ARKit 3 stuff, they give you publishers to load resources, and that's the only way to get a resource. So if you're doing iOS development, you will be using combine.
So it's like
I've got past the last 2 years without using RX Swift, so that's the difference. Apple's provided it, and Apple, and there could be a bigger ecosystem around Combine because Apple's the one that made it for their platform.
So So it's like a framework like an Excel that has the power of Apple.
Yeah, it's got the backing of Apple, right? So yeah, there's not much difference, I think,
exactly.
between them, but I don't know. I don't know where it's from. So
I'm trying to compare it. Just the first time I'm seeing this, because I'm not like iOS developer for like over a year. So just trying to compare it, but I'm seeing like the similarities and the publishing, subscribing, and all the things. So just curious about it. Thank you.
So hopefully everyone believes this to be the coolest thing ever, because I certainly do. Regardless of whether it's RX Swift or Combine, stuff like this is really cool. Yeah. But that's, I started this talk, I said, like, we're going to do 2 publishers. We're going to do one to get the samples and one to get the heart rate. But before we go on to the heart rate, let's just have a look at these other queries that we need to interact with. So the first one here is that sample query. That's how you initialize it. And there's one called a statistics query. That's what we're going to be using to get the heart rate. And there's one here called the source query, and that allows you to query both the apps that are making health stuff. We're not going to bother too much about that. I just plucked out another one just to show that they're all kind of vaguely similar, right? What's really interesting are these closures here. So we'll pull those out. And apart from the fact that I've made it kind of tabular, you can see a somewhat odd pattern. The first parameter is always the query that you've made. The second parameter is always essentially what would become the output of the publisher. And the last one is always your failure zone. And you keep looking at these and you kind of think back to like a billion years ago, and you think, wow, these aren't 3 different closures. These are the same closure, right? It's just the same generic closure. How cool is that? I even put an emoji. That's how mind-blowing it is. So that's sample query publisher, the sample publisher that we had. Can we make that generic? Because these things all have the same shape. They all follow this pattern of query, output, failure to avoid. Exactly the same. So can we do something amazing and crazy? So this is what we have for the sample publisher 2. I mean, we love sample publisher, but sample publisher 2 is so much better. But I'm sorry, sample publisher 2. You're going to have to go. We're going to make you generic. And luckily for everyone involved, that means that we actually have to rename it because we're no longer interested in just samples. It's just a query publisher, right? So definitely Chris is happy because sample publisher 2 is gone. And we're going to make query publisher. And what we've done instead of defining the type aliases, output and failure, is that we're going to define them as the generic parameters. So the output, there's no constraints on the output. The failure has to be an error because the publisher's failure types always have to be an error. And we'll also define a generic query parameter at the start, which has to be a HK query. So all of the queries that we look at in HealthKit subclass the space type of HK query. It might not be obvious because it's not called HK base query, but it's just called HK query. We're also going to define the type alias of the query, the output, and failure. This is the shape of the completion blocks that we've seen in those publishers. And you can trust me when I say there are 2 more in HealthKit, I think at least, that have the same shape, which makes it even more interesting. And then we're going to define the store and query. And again, I'm just going to toggle back. That's not much more different than this function here. So in the receive, when we're actually making the subscription and giving it to the subscriber, there's no change. That did actually change. Nothing needs to change, right? We're in the publisher. It knows about the output. It knows about the failure. We've constrained it to be the output and the failure. That's all cool. It's all happy. Making the subscription itself not much changes there either. We just have to define that the query type that we're going to use is the generic one, not a sample and a very specific one. And the subscription conformance here, when we're requesting and cancelling these things, yeah, there's no change there either. The first thing that's missing is error handling. And that's because combine kind of works like trumps. As soon as you error, nothing else happens, and it diverts to the error, the error output. Nothing else down here will, if the user said no, you can't have any data, and it gets back an error, none of this code would happen, and it would just say, yep, there's an error. If this flat map failed, the rest of it would fail, but this would have gone ahead anyway. So it's a really nice way of dealing with errors, because this is your clean version, and any errors are just kind of passed out. And that's kind of how we used to deal with errors in Swift normally. But now it's done in a kind of asynchronous way. So let me just walk you through this code. So the first one is a cheat, because I haven't shown you this publisher. But that's a publisher that you can kind of imagine right into request authorization. The request authorization just says, okay, go away, and I'll give you a Boolean value that says yes or no, and an error in its weird kind of question mark way. You can hopefully kind of imagine writing that publisher. Then we're flat map, and flat map says, okay, ignore the publisher that we just were, we're going to be another publisher now. And we change this whole chain to be a publisher for the sample, for the workout sample query. We use our nice shorthand so it reads kind of well. And then we compact map because the sample query gives us an array of HK samples, not workouts, but we know that workout is a subclass of sample, so we should be able to just do that. If not, this chain just stops and nothing else happens. So if it does work out, we'll carry on and we'll do another flat map. And now it gets hairy because we've indented loads and that scares us. We've got our array of workouts, so we're going to map over them and get a workout for each. And for each workout, we're going to get the average heart rate for plus the implementation, and then we're going to get the average quantity out of that result. After that, we're going to map it to a workout item. So we give it the workout and the average heart rate data. That's the bit that's actually going to be on our list. And then we've got an array of publishers. And that's tricky. However, they're all array of publishers which have the same type. And this little number here is something I blogged about a month ago, which basically takes an array of publishers and becomes a publisher of an array of their outputs. So if you've got three publishers, one that publishes a publisher for a value A, a publisher for a value B, and a publisher for a value C, if you've got them in an array, the end result of this publisher is that you get an array of A, B, and C. Okay? I'm sorry, I don't have time to explain that, but there's a blog post. But trust me, that's what happens. So at the end of this flat map, we've now got an array, we've now got an output of an array of workout items. We erased to any publisher because this is an extension on the health store, and actually what we want to give back is this any publisher of workout items and error. Otherwise, what you end up with is the biggest type that you've ever seen. Like, it would be as long as this to define the types of publishers, because it's all type safe. It captures every single publisher that's happened. So it captures this one, this one, this one, this one, and it all just kind of wraps it up into a massive generic garbage. As soon as you erase to any publisher, it kind of flattens it out and just says, okay, yes, at the end of this is what you're getting, this is the error. There's a little diagram here just to run through that again. We're going to request the authorization, and then the flat map is going to change the publisher on the tree to be the workouts publisher. Then we're going to do our compact map to make sure that they're actually workout values. And then in here, we're going to make sure we've got these arrays of publishers, which are the heart rate publisher, which is compact mapped into a workout item. So we've got these as an array. Combined latest is going to take all of those publishers and say, okay, now you're an array of their values. We're going to flat map it so this whole thing becomes the combined latest publisher, and then we're going to erase to any publisher. don't know if that diagram helped. I did it at the last minute. I'm not even sure actually. But that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of how to make a combined publisher.